In this week's office hours, I review two essays. One is someone applying for a master's in computer science. The other one is someone applying for an MBA program. And in both these essays, I see a common mistake that I talk about a lot in these office hours, which is not standing out from the pack. When you are applying to grad school, and I see this over and over and over, you are applying against many people who are passionate about the topic and who have taken lots of classes on the topic, who've done lots of work in that field, and you want to stand out from the pack because everyone else has probably taken those same classes and is also passionate about this topic. So you need to look for what my friend Dave Perel calls your personal monopoly. And that is an intersection of the interests, the background and experiences, and the unique point of view that you are bringing into that field in your essays. And the reason it's called a personal monopoly because it can't be copied. It's something that is very unique and specific to you. And you need to do some digging to find what that is for you to be able to stand out from everyone else who is applying. So we cover that in more detail in the essays that I review. And then we also talk about some just general Q&A, like the timeline for getting started with applying to grad school, as well as the difference between a master's application and a research application, and then some general advice about letters of rec. So dive in, and if you find this video helpful, please like and subscribe. And you can also join my free office hours that happen about every month. All right, and then so how this is gonna go is we're gonna all read silently, and then I'm gonna make comments or suggestions throughout on some of the things I notice in terms of like need clarity or what works or what maybe needs some improvement. And then anyone can ask questions. So if I give a piece of feedback that you feel is confusing or you're thinking about how that applies to your own essays, just jump in and ask a question. It's a pretty small group, so just unmute yourself and jump in. And that's how this is gonna work. Okay, a couple things about this first sentence, this first paragraph. So for everyone, your first paragraph is really like your elevator pitch, and it tells the reader how much to pay attention to the rest of the essay. So it's really important. And when you're reading like 100 essays on the application committee, you want to stand out in the very first instance. And like imagine this like when you are in a class and you have like 5 readings for the week for 5 classes, and it's a lot of reading for the week. You can't pay close attention to every single thing you're reading. And so you read the abstract, and then the abstract tells you, yeah, I should pay close attention to this, or I should just kind of skim this. That's kind of what happens in these essays. I mean, people, they're gonna read, they're not gonna skim, but they're just gonna pay more attention when like there's kind of this unconscious bias around like, oh, this person is a good fit versus this person is probably not the right fit. And then you kind of don't read as closely or don't give that person the benefit of the doubt. And so I really hamper on opening paragraphs because you want to have no doubt in your mind and about that person up front. And I had a teacher in high school say this about when you go to college, or she said this in a high school like English class. She was just like, make sure there is not a single grammatical mistake in your first paragraph, and make sure your first paragraph is brilliant, because then the person's already thinking like, oh, this is really good, or like, this is not good, like in the first instance. So I'm going to tell you a couple things around the first paragraph that I like. So what I like is that I feel your passion and your curiosity for this topic. You do a good job, like kind of vividly sharing what this experience is like for you and how you feel about coding. And you do that with really great words like endless sequence of ever increasing interest. Like you just have like some good phrases in here that show your passion and your enthusiasm without ever saying, I am passionate about computer science and programming because, which is a mistake a lot of people do in their intros. They say, I am passionate, and then they just like tell you without showing you. And here you're doing a good job showing. So I think that part is really good. The thing is though, I want to hear more in an intro paragraph about what makes you unique and what makes you stand out, because you are going to have lots of people read this and lots of people apply who are just like you, who can nerd out about computer science and computer programming and probably have a similar experience of like how they first got exposed to this. So I would encourage you to do some digging around what is your unique lens on in this field. What is your unique perspective? And so some ways to think about this. This is something my friend Dave Perel, who teaches a writing course, he calls finding your personal monopoly. And what I mean by that is like find the unique intersection of who you are and what you care about that is like your own personal monopoly. Like no one else can copy you and be you because it's only you. And so for example, if you look at the examples of my personal statements and SOPs on my YouTube channel, which I'm sure y'all saw if you ended up here, in those examples, my personal monopoly is that I care about how city planning impacts people's health. So that's already like a unique kind of lens on public health that's different than the average public health person. Like I care about cities, like transportation and housing and all that stuff. But my lens goes even further in that I care about environmental justice and how pollution shapes communities of color and like the kind of politics and policies that go into that. But it goes even further in that I come from a low income polluted community. And that's what, and like all those things together are my personal monopoly. In my grad school program, in the jobs I've had, like for me to span all those things, it's my personal monopoly. Like I worked on a program where I was the only person on the staff who comes from one of the communities we're trying to serve. Everyone else, like they care about these things, they study about these things, but I get what it's like to live there. And that's my personal monopoly, and that's my unique lens on the issues that give me a different perspective. And so here in your, for all of you in your essays, I want to hear like what is your personal, unique kind of bridging of the things you bring to the table that make you stand out from every single other person who's done a coding class. And like a lot of people say, I took this class and I took this class and I'm passionate, and it's like, okay, so did everyone else who's applying. So how are you going to make yourself stand out? And where I would encourage you to start from is you say technology is the heart of evolution. I'm not exactly sure what you mean by that, but I think that's where you can expand. And you're interested in artificial intelligence. And I want you to expand on like, not just that, like in this intro paragraph, I want you to make a case for what about artificial intelligence interests you and that you want to pursue as part of your career. Like some really great examples I've seen from people are like someone in computer science who is really, or doing artificial intelligence, who is really passionate about people who have disabilities, physical disabilities because of something that's happened in their family, like some family member. And so they want to dedicate their career to improving the technology for people with physical disabilities to be able to have more fulfilling, sustained lives through using technology. Like that's someone who you stand out and you're like, yes, I want this person to go get a master's so they can go out and do and achieve those things. So I'm just trying to give you an example here. I'm not saying like invent something, but is there something like that in your life that you're really curious about, that you want to explore, that makes artificial intelligence and studying that the pathway to something really interesting. You may not have that figured out before you apply to grad school, but try to find like what is that unique lens or angle that you want to take in applying to grad school. Does that make sense? And that's this for everyone. I know that was like a lot. That was like a big. I start very high level, so I would definitely unpack that some more. But any questions about that?
Oh, ma'am, that makes sense. Thank you.
And you want to give me like in like a minute, tell me like, is there, what is that for you with computer science? Do you know yet? Or is that something you need to explore further?
Yeah, and actually, I need to explore further, like in what sense AI has I can apply AI in the world.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is what I'm like, you did a good job at not saying I'm passionate about computer science. And instead you showed me, I sense that you're passionate. And then in the end you say, to have an impact on the world. Oops. And that's one of those phrases where it's the same as I'm passionate about this. You're just saying something without showing me something. So show me what is the impact you want to have on the world and how is artificial intelligence going to help you get there. And I'll send this in the follow-up email, but I have a YouTube video on this exercise called an Ikigai. And it's really helpful at helping you find what is that unique lens between all the different things that are in your worldview. Like, what are you good at? What does the world need? What do you love? And what can you get paid to do? And you put these circles together and you try to find what is in the center of those circles. So I'll send that out in the follow-up email for you all, but it's a good exercise. You just sit, draw some circles, brainstorm, and it will be helpful with helping you try to unpack that for yourself. All right, so I'm gonna move on. Okay. Again, this is one of those really lofty sentences where you're telling, you're not showing. So rather than telling me neural networks have the potential to change the world, tell me how like you would use neural networks to change the world. And give me like examples of how you would do that. The other thing too, in this paragraph, like this is very common. So I'm glad you came here because this is something I see all the time in essays is people are giving like a lot of like details about classes they took and like first this happened, then this happened, then this happened that are not really relevant or making a case to you. Because like most people have taken lots of classes on the topic. So saying first I did this, then I did this, then I did this is not really making a case. You wanna not just talk about classes, you wanna talk about what you did. So you wanna showcase experiences. It's fine to talk about a class if you did a project or wrote a paper or something that produced some sort of outcome that demonstrates you have certain skill sets. And so here I see you took these courses, but that doesn't tell me what you're capable of. Like right now, you're making a case for the field, and this is something I see a lot. Like people are making a case for like why that thing is cool or important, like why public health is amazing or why computer science is amazing. But you need to be making a case about you. Why are you amazing? What skills do you have? What have you done that shows that you can be successful in a computer science program? And they're going to see your resume, so they will, and your transcript, so they will see you've taken these classes and you got these grades. And that's plenty. So they don't need you to reiterate that in an essay. So what you state in an essay is the things that they can't see from your resume or from your transcript. So say you had a project that at first it seemed like there was no solution to XYZ based on like what you were trying to do and achieve, and you took a different approach and you decided to apply this one method that hadn't been tried in this way, and then it produced this spectacular outcome, and your professor was like, wow, I can't believe you did that. That is an amazing way to describe like something you did in the class. Do you see the difference between that?
Yes, ma'am. I got it.
Great. So here you're doing a better job of like being more descriptive of something you did. And I want you to unpack this further. Tell me the who, what, where, why. Like what happened in those experiments? What was the outcome of the experiment? So here, like unpack this and show me the skills that you gained, like doing those sorts of things. And then this is something I would avoid, and this is for everyone. People put in like disqualifiers, like not that you'd be disqualified, but like you don't want to, this is something that we talk about in writing from George Lakoff. They're called elephant triggers. And he has a book called Don't Think of an Elephant. And the second someone says, don't think of an elephant, you are thinking about an elephant. And so in this kind of scenario, it doesn't matter that you weren't interested in this topic. And so there's no point of saying that, because now they're going to think, oh, this person's not interested in X, Y, and Z. Like it doesn't matter that you weren't interested in that. So just don't bring it up. Similarly, I see this a lot where people say things like, although I didn't have the skill set to do X, Y, and Z, it's just like, just remove that. They don't know you didn't have that skill set. Just show you did something. And so there's a lot, like, watch out. This is for everyone. Like, watch out for things like that are talking you down. And this happens all the time. I'll try to point it out with people. There's like all these little ways we discount ourselves. Like, oh, like even though I don't have that much experience, I still am willing to X, Y, and Z. It's like, just don't even say you don't have that. Like I'm working with someone on their Fulbright application, and they were saying like, they were like, oh, but I don't have research experience on X, Y, and Z, and I'm worried. And I'm like, you don't? Like, I read your essay and I thought this person seems highly qualified. So just don't even mention that you don't have that experience, because you're writing in a way that comes off that you've done your homework, you have a good approach. And so just keep it like a whole bragging about yourself, which I know is really hard to do. Which is why like we all need help with doing these, because it's really, really hard to do that for yourself. So that's why you have people read and friends and things like that and give you feedback. I'm highlighting this part because this AI and healthcare, like that can be the seed of one of those things that I was talking about at the beginning with your personal monopoly. Like, is that something you want to explore more and further? And it's a huge issue. And there's a lot of things happening in that. So is that something you want to explore further in grad school? I'm not saying you have to be stuck on that, but that's the first thing where I get a sense of like the kind of thing you are interested in. And then here you say you implemented this model, and for the reader, let them know what that model is. Why was it important to implement that kind of model? Was it based on like the boundaries of the project? Was it innovative or like a good approach to do that? And then what did you learn about that? And then this is kind of, again, more stuff that just like, it doesn't matter to the reader. like, it doesn't matter that you learned about these papers published by Google. Like, that's not giving me any information about you and your skill set and who you are. So I want you to like turn the spotlight onto you. Right now, the spotlight is it's like right now it's like the backdrop is on like, if you look at a stage, it's like you have the whole backdrop lit up, and I want you to like zoom in and put a spotlight on you, so you make this more about you and your skills. Okay, this is for everyone. Like, just avoid kind of these like long kind of intros where it's just words you don't need. Like, you don't need to talk about this. It's not adding anything to the conversation. You can just say like, and not like I stumbled upon, but like I started looking into quantum computing, and then I did X, Y, and Z. Like, just jump straight to it. You don't need this whole like how you got there. And you do that in a lot of your intros, so just watch out for them. Like, in the meantime, I got the opportunity to gain research experience during my second year. Like, you can just say like, while researching at Washington University, I worked on X, Y, Z. Like, just jump straight to it. You don't need to like the whole setup. So watch out for that throughout the whole essay. And then similarly, in the rest of your essay, you're talking more generally about the field, and I want to see you talk more about you, what you did in these things, how you want to apply computer science. So make it less about like the classes you took and more about you. And then that will help make you stand out more by just getting more specific, because like, I read a lot of these, like everyone, you know, is taking lots of classes. They do online classes. Everyone wants to work at Google. So really like dig deeper to find out what are the things that are your unique attributes, and the people you're applying against that are very competitive are people who are like, I spent my nights and weekends developing this app that did X, Y, and Z, and I utilized it in X, Y, and Z spaces, and then I learned X, Y, and Z, and now I realize I need to learn more if I want to take that further and turn it into X, Y, and Z. Like, they get really specific with like what they're doing and how they're applying this stuff in the world, rather than just saying I took a bunch of classes. So I want you to like just kind of unpack and dig deeper, and I'll send you that link in terms of that Ikigai exercise that I mentioned. But overall, like, you know, I think one thing you do well is like you demonstrate your interest in this well in the first paragraph, and so that I think you can keep that, just shift it further down and make it shorter, and then instead have the intro focus more on how you see computer science and how it's applied, and like why it's important for you to go study it. MBA UCR School of Business. Okay, similarly to the comments I just made about the intro being like powerful and impactful, this is just like a lot of like nice language, but it's not really like telling me anything about you. And so this is something I would more like move down. Let me see if I can do this track changes. I would move this kind of at the end of like an intro paragraph. And I would make it less, formal. Like I am writing to express, like you would do something like that in a cover letter, not necessarily a statement of purpose. Like you could just say like, I am like eager to pursue an MBA. And then you just kind of like get to the point, because like you are doing that. You're not like just expressing your interest. Okay, so this first paragraph is pretty good. It's showing me who you are as a person, and that like you're giving little like insights and snapshots into like your long-term drive and passion for this. So in the previous essay, we saw this was kind of drawn out throughout the whole essay, talking about the classes and the certifications and all that stuff. You do a good job of like packing that all into one paragraph. Like in one paragraph, I get a sense of like, you're passionate about this, you are self-motivated, self-driven to immerse yourself in this world. It was a bit of a different, scary path for you, and you were courageous in moving forward with that path. And I get all of that in like the opening paragraph, rather than like if that was the whole essay, I'd be like, okay, what else do you got? But I like that you did that in one paragraph and it's very succinct. So for the previous example, like you can pay attention to like how this is done as like a way to just kind of pack into one paragraph. Like I've taken all these online courses on quantum mechanics and all these things, blah, 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 and then only do that in a very short amount of space. And then you have more space to talk more about what you've done and what you want to do. So this is a good way to open it up. And then what I would have you do here is like kind of have some sort of transition, like, you know, I moved into the work world and that's been awesome. I've learned a lot. And now I'm ready for a MBA where I can take my learning or my skill set to the next level and achieve X, Y, and Z. Like just transition to here. And then this part, I don't think you need to say that. This I already said, like cut that out. And just make this something like I'm applying to, and then say X, Y, like XYZ reason why you're applying. This is a sentence. This is one of those things where if you're saying a sentence that anyone can say, it's not worth saying. So like this is like one of those obvious true things, like rapidly evolving business landscape. It's just like, okay, any human can say that. So it's not worth like taking up space here if it's applicable to everyone. Like, and I see this a lot in essays. People are like, public health is really important. It's like, okay, yeah, that's obvious. Like, it's like don't state the obvious. State something like interesting. And similarly with this, it's not worth saying. And then with this, instead of saying my unique background, show me what is your unique background. Like as a first generation immigrant, like I bring to the table X, Y, and Z. Like show me something that's like really what is your unique background and what actually makes you an asset. And like immigrants are like the number one small business owners in the country. And like how do you take that energy of the immigrant small business entrepreneur spirit that you had when you were 7 years old to go sell stuff on the sidewalk and turn that into being the CEO of a multinational company? Like what is that unique thing that you bring, and then what is UCR going to give you that takes you to where you want to go that's different from where you're at right now? That's how I'd encourage you to think about how you frame this. Similarly, in the last essay, where like things that are going to be in your resume, you don't need to state here. So instead of saying this, you can just say, and you don't even need to say the time, they'll see that on your resume. And then say like, I do X, Y, Z, or like I learn X, Y, Z, or I accomplished X, Y, Z. A lot of this stuff too is kind of like stuff you'd see in a resume that's just kind of like, okay, like it's just not that interesting. And so a way you can repackage this is like, I always say like, tell a story and give an example. Like rather than giving us the whole big picture, just like zoom in on one instance. Like tell me about a time where there was a project and it was really difficult. It was really challenging. You overcame that challenge. You overcame that hurdle. You brought people together in a way. You analyzed the data in a way that led to an incredible result. Tell that story of that one instance that then shows you have mastered these tools, that shows you know how to bring together a team and work well, that shows that you are a leader who can pick up the slack. Like, the way I would tell a story like this is like I have like a similar example. Like in a previous job, I was like we had a change in leadership. The CEO left and we got a new CEO, and then the VP, my boss, and our communications director all left at the same time. And I was committed to the project being successful, even though that it was insane. And I had to do, like, it was a Herculean effort for me to do all three of those executive leadership's jobs while training a whole new set of people and hiring them. And it was just like, it was insanity. And what I learned from that is like, I can handle anything you throw at me. And I would just like unpack like what that looked like in your work. Like, what did it really look like? What did it feel like? What were the tasks that they put onto you? Were you having to grow and learn and develop to reach those tasks and take that on? Like, show us who you were in those experiences and what you actually did, rather than just saying like, you know, I learned these platforms and I worked with the team and I became skilled. Like, show us those things. Does that make sense? This is the same thing about the elephant triggers. Like, you just don't need to mention this at all. It's just not, it's not there. If you were to frame it, I would frame it more as like, you know, during COVID, during COVID, lots of people were being let go. There were lots of challenges, and I was moved to another account because they really wanted to keep me. You know, where like, because that's what's interesting is not that, oh, you didn't get promoted. What is relevant is that even in the context of like, you know, it's challenging right now with COVID, they went out of their way to keep you because you're valuable. And so that's the impressive part, not that you didn't get the promotion. So just don't even bring up that my promotion was postponed. Just talk about how you were shifted to another direction, so that you can continue to be with the company in a time when lots of people, you know, were probably not given those opportunities. Again, here, instead of tell me, show me how this showed up. Like, I moved to a new team. They had a totally different culture, X, Y, and Z. I had to adapt because of blah, 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 blah. I quickly got up to speed by blah, 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 blah. And like, show me all the things that you did that helped you adapt to that drastic change and how you use communication skills to navigate that space, rather than just saying like your communication skills improved. Okay, so I think overall, similarly to the last essay, I want you to further unpack your personal monopoly, your unique lens, your unique approach to this kind of work. And digital marketing as a space is very common. And so there's lots of people who are going to have a similar kind of take on digital marketing. And I want you to dive a little deeper into what is your take on digital marketing. What is your approach? What is your lens? What do you want to gain from this program that you don't currently have just from working in your job? I work with a lot of like top digital marketers. My husband and I have an online education company, and it's like, they're like ninjas. They're like, it's insane what they know how to do. And I'm talking about people who are paid $1,000 an hour to get on a phone call and will transform your business like in like a month. Like, they're insane people. And the way they approach the world is like they have these superpowers where they are so good at understanding people's emotions, understanding what the audience wants, understanding how to bring the audience closer to the product. And they do that with digital tools and analysis, but they also do that through like really amazing storytelling, and they're just so good at what they do. I like, blows my mind whenever I'm on a call with one of these people, like what they know how to do. And I want to like feel that essence of who that kind of person is in you and in your approach in this essay. Like, you know, what is your take on digital marketing? How are you gonna, not just that you want to go work at Google or work at eBay and do their digital marketing, but like, what is the underlying approach and lens that you bring to this work, and how have the skills that you've developed set you up to be successful in a program like this? So I want you to unpack all of that a little bit deeper.
I was just hoping to get your perspective on, there's so many different things that go into an application with the essays and letters of referral and all of those sort of different things. So for someone who's kind of just starting out in the process, do you have any advice for a timeline or some good benchmarks to kind of stay on track with all of that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, you can have the time this takes expand the time you have. A lot of people start really early and they're like tweaking essays for like months. And then some people, like, they pull it together in a week. Like my sister decided on like a Monday she wanted to apply to grad school, and she would have to take her GRE that same week to even, like, that was the last time she could take it before the application, which was due like 2 weeks later. And she had to reach out to people and be like, can you get me a letter of rec in the next like 2 weeks? And she made that all happen in 2 weeks. And got into all the programs she applied to. And like, so it's like, you can make that happen if you, and the reason she was able to do that is she was, like really set on what she wanted to do and really clear on what she wanted. So pulling together all of that stuff was pretty easy, versus like it takes longer if you're just not really sure what, what it is you want to do or achieve. So like some of the advice I gave earlier about digging deeper and doing some exercises to really find out what is your unique lens, all that kind of stuff is kind of some soul searching. And there's a lot of soul searching that happens in a graduate school application process. So if you start early, if it's like during the process, you're doing soul searching because you're reading about programs, you're learning about different tracks. And if you're learning about a field that you're new to, like I was fairly new to public health and city planning, and I would say it probably took me years. Like I first heard about public health and I was reading about all these programs, and I just had to let that all like sink in before, and then I didn't apply to a public health program for like another 2 years, but it was just sinking in where I was learning, oh, there's one track that's epidemiology and one that's like health and social behavior, and it's more about like people. But I was starting to just like soak that all in and pay attention to it like, years earlier. And then I had to go develop some skill sets because I knew I didn't have any experience in public health to be able to apply. So it really like, it expands the horizon of what you need. But there's also like some general guidance I would say is like, you want to ask for letters of rec at least 6 weeks in advance. And just reach out to any time between like 3 months, and I think 3 months is a lot, but like 3 months to like 6 weeks in it before the application's due, you want to ask for letters of rec. Even if you ask too early, like people can forget about it even after lots of reminders, even if they've already said yes to doing it months earlier. Their circumstances might change, they might get busy. So I think, generally about 6 weeks beforehand, ask for letters of rec. And then if someone's busy, they're on sabbatical, they don't have time, you want to have time to ask backup recommenders in case the first people are unavailable to write letters of rec. The GRE, you can take the GRE, I think it's good for 5 years. It's something like that. So I took the GRE right when I graduated undergrad, because I was like, I'm unemployed. I'm like living with my parents. I could study for this right now. And so I took it I think I took it like 4 years before I actually applied to grad school. So you can take it at any time. Or like my sister, she had like 4 days to study for it. And the thing is, I spent like 6 to 8 weeks, like really studying for the GRE, and my scores were average. My sister spent 4 days and her scores were average. And like, I just don't see myself as a good test taker. And I have a video on like why the GRE is like a kind of a waste of your time. And it's just, for most programs, your GRE is just, it's like a footnote. No one looks at it. It's like, if you have a top GRE score and your essays are kind of like mediocre, you're not going to get in. If you have like a solid story and essays and lots of experience and your GRE scores are mediocre, they're not going to not consider you. Like, it's not the most important thing to invest your energy in. if you have time to study and all that kind of stuff. If you're applying for like a STEM type program, your quant score should be high. If it's not high and you don't have, but you have like A's in your math and science courses, then that will mean people won't worry about it that much. But for the most part, GREs are not that big of a deal. So invest the time in it that you want to and have. And then in terms of the essays, yeah, you can, like, there's people who spend months just like tweaking on the weekends. Some people just pull an all-nighter and like get it done. But you do want eyes on your essays. Like, you want time for people to read them and give you feedback, whether that's like family or friends or like former professors. So building in some time so you can give it to someone and they have like at least a week to get you feedback. So I'd say like starting your essays at least a month before the applications due is probably good. But, you know, if you're crazy like my sister, you can do it in a couple days if you need to. And my sister also has me. She's like, I need this and I need it by tomorrow. And I'm like, okay. So like she has like extra resources. You know, like do what's going to feel right for you, based on, you know, you all have jobs and other things going on in your life. So, you know, find the right balance.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Let's see, I have another question. Okay, this one's about PhD applications. So PhD applications are a little bit different than a master's application. So in a PhD application, you are also selling your research interests and your research potential to the university. Because with a PhD, you are getting paid to do it. You are considered part of the research and teaching staff at the university. If you are going to a PhD program and it's not fully funded, that is some sort of scam. Like every single PhD program should be funded. If it's not funded, don't apply for it. Like the point of a PhD is like you are getting funded to be there. And so you are selling yourself and your research to the university because there's a benefit and a gain from that, because they want to have you publish under like the brand of the university, teach under the brand of the university. And so in a master's application, you don't necessarily need to know like what exactly you want to research or have like a clearly defined path. With a PhD application, you definitely want to get specific around your research interest and your research questions and who you would be doing research with. So with a PhD application process, often the people you want to do research with, the professors, the PIs, the principal investigators in most cases, they have funding for PhD students based on the research they do. And so you have to align with them in that way. And so a lot of the people who have the most say in your application are the professors or advisors, the person who would be advising you. And so when you're applying for PhDs, you're actually reaching out to the professors before you apply and telling them, hey, these are my research interests. I'm interested in your, like, working with you as an advisor, blah, 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 blah. And you generally are getting on like, you know, a Zoom call or something with them to talk through things. And they either will vouch for you or they won't. But you'll have a good sense of that based on your conversations with them. They will tell you like, yeah, I'd love to have you come research with me, or like, I'm not sure if you're a good fit, maybe talk to someone else. And they'll be pretty honest with you up front. And then at the end of the day, they have a certain amount of money in terms of who they can accept. So I've heard this is so sad. I've heard this from like people where they like, they're really aligned with the professor really wants them, and then the professor's funding doesn't come through for a grant or a research thing that they had, and then they are just like, sorry, I didn't get this funding I thought was going to come through, and so I can't take you. Maybe next year that might be different, or like, you know, people often have other options, so then they go somewhere else. So you definitely want to be specific about your research questions and interests in a PhD application. And then there's another question about like who to get letters of rec from. So the question is does it have to be a department professor? I'd say no. It has to be, it's more important that you have a letter of rec that is strong from someone who knows you and your work well than a mediocre letter, or like a vague or mediocre letter of work from someone with a higher title. It's better to, unless their title is going to be recognized by who is on the committee. And that's really rare. So say you are applying to a university and you have a letter from someone who is employed at that university or in that department, then that carries more weight because the readers know that person personally. So like, they're like, oh, like that's like when a friend recommends something to you, you trust your friend, right? So that's the only time where you like might want to have that, unless that person is also famous in your field. So I got really lucky with this because like the person was the department chair and the advisor of the dual master's program that I was applying to. I met him when I was doing research in Brazil, and he offered to write me a letter of rec because he wanted me to come to that school and continue to do work with him. So it's like, they all know him. That's like a, you know, easy vouch for it. Like, and then he also did his Ph.D. at MIT where I was applying to. So all the MIT people know him too. So it's like, okay, that's a good person to have. Even though I didn't know him that well. So you kind of want to like balance that out, but generally I say like have a strong letter of rec from someone who knows you well, because when they're kind of vague, they just don't come off well, because when you're reading letters of rec, they all sound the same. Every single one of them is like, this is the greatest person ever for X, Y, and Z reasons. Like they all sound so strong. Like they make the person sound amazing. And then what stands out as a red flag is when like it's just generic. It's like, this person is okay, and it's like it doesn't get specific at all. You're just like, oh, like that's kind of a red flag in comparison to all the other ones that are like, this is the greatest student I ever worked with, which is what most of the other letters of rec sound like. So you want to have someone who's on that side of like really overselling you. And it's funny, like there's been a couple experience where I've actually read letters of rec that someone wrote for me, and I was like shocked reading them because I'm like, I don't think I'm that great at all. And like professors know how to sell you though, and you're like, really? Like that's so like, I didn't feel like we had that relationship, but like they really like want to sell you, and so they will work to do that. If it's someone who doesn't know you well enough, or you don't have enough trust for them to sell you in that way, then ask someone else who knows you better. All right, we are at the end of our time, but thank you, and look out for these again next month. And I have private office hours I think it's next Friday. And so those are limited to 4 people. Those are not posted on YouTube, and those cost $30. And that way it's like accessible and more private, and it's not, you know, like a big financial commitment, but you get a little bit more in depth, and we go back and forth. And there I do more in-depth line editing and stuff because we have a bit more time. So you can check those out on my website, wherever you signed up for this. You can see upcoming dates for that stuff. And if you're on my email list, you'll get updates about when next office hours are next month. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.